On this Monday night, decision day in 3 federal ridings, the closely watched by-elections that could give the federal Liberals a majority government. The U.S. president's new attempt to strong-arm Iran into allowing full access to the Strait of Hormuz.
They're really blackmailing the world.
And Iran's response. The backlash after Donald Trump insults the Pope and appears to compare himself to Jesus.
It's gross. It's blasphemous. It's his usual.
Plus, big stars against a big deal.
This is a letter really from the lifeblood of the film industry.
Their mission to stop the Paramount Warner Brothers mega merger.
Global National with Donna Friesen.
Almost a year after the last federal election, voters could deliver a majority to the Liberal government of Prime Minister Mark Carney. By-elections are underway today in 3 ridings, 2 in Toronto and 1 near Montreal. Good evening and thanks for joining us. The Liberals, having already gained 5 MPs who crossed the floor to join them, only need to win one of those by-elections tonight to have enough seats for a majority. We'll take you through each of the ridings in play tonight. We begin with Eric Sorensen and the political drama that led to all this.
Donna, it's almost as if last year's election results never quite stopped coming in. They just kept changing.
Okay, we'll see what happens.
A year ago, the Liberals fell short of a majority, but just. For a time, the Prime Minister led the country with a new minority government. But the almost majority was lurking, enticing. In November, Conservative MP Chris D'Entremont joined the Liberals, starting a flurry of moves in Parliament, each one changing the standings. You needed a scorecard to keep track. So here's how we got here. Last May, when the recounts were finished, the Liberals had 169 seats, 3 short of the 172 needed for a majority. In the fall, Chris D'Entremont and another Conservative crossed the floor, bringing the Liberals to 171, on the brink. But in the new year, 2 Liberals, Chrystia Freeland and Bill Blair, resigned. And Terrebonne, a close Liberal win in Quebec, was nullified over mail-in ballot errors. Suddenly back to 168. But in succession, another Conservative, a New Democrat, and a 4th Conservative MP crossed the floor, and the Liberals were back to 171, which brings us to tonight. 3 by-elections, 2 in Liberal Toronto strongholds, and Terrebonne, the Liberals now on the cusp of a majority.
I'm Colin D'Mello in Toronto, where 2 by-elections here are expected to be won quite handily by Mark Carney's Liberals. In downtown Toronto, there's University Rosedale, where Danielle Martin, an academic, is expected to succeed Chrystia Freeland. Here in Scarborough Southwest, Dolly Begum, the former deputy leader of the Ontario NDP who switched parties to run for Mark Carney's Liberals, is expected to succeed Bill Blair. They are widely expected to win. In the last general election, both these ridings were won by the Liberals by about 65%. So it's not a question of what could be happening tonight. It's a question of by what margin. Many of the voters here in Scarborough Southwest have been saying that this is a Mark Carney election to them, that they are voting either in favor or against the Prime Minister himself. So the question will be, what will the makeup of this vote look like? Will voters vote along party lines, or will they buck those traditional votes and vote for a party that they've never chosen before?
I'm Touria Izri at the Liberal Watch Party in Terrebonne, Quebec. Few races have seen as many twists and turns as here. In the Montreal area riding of Terrebonne, Prime Minister Mark Carney's popularity in Quebec is being put to the test.
He can deal with the U.S. and he's a very capable and prominent Prime Minister.
It's a rematch after the Liberals beat the Bloc Québécois by a single vote in 2025's federal election. Because of a clerical error, a Bloc supporter's mail-in ballot was never counted, and the Supreme Court later threw out the results. I think it's going to be tight again, says this voter. A close race in what was once considered a sure thing for the Separatist Party.
Pour le Bloc, finalement. Pour les intérêts du Québec au complet.
I'm voting for the Bloc, says this woman, and the interests of all of Quebec.
Terrebonne right now, it is the ultimate toss-up.
The do-over could be complicated by dozens of protest candidates from the longest ballot committee. Elections Canada is already warning the results could take longer to come in.
All right. Our chief political correspondent, David Akin, is with me now from Ottawa. David, given that the 2 Toronto seats are considered safe Liberal ridings, it would be a shock if the Liberals don't win those tonight and then have enough seats to form a majority. What practical difference does that make on how Mark Carney governs?
Well, Donna, the Carney government would be able to proceed with its agenda without having to worry about securing support from at least one other opposition party.
We're going to still deliver the things that matter to Canadians.
Think of budgets during the minority Trudeau years, where the price of NDP support for one budget was a new national pharmacare program. Now, with a majority, for better or worse, there would be no more parliamentary horse trading. But this is also shaping up to be a razor-thin majority, and that means Carney and his cabinet will have to pay special attention to caucus management, because just 2 or 3 unhappy Liberals could threaten the government's agenda. The call might be coming from inside the House, as they say. So, care must be taken so that this big red tent that includes former Conservatives and a former New Democrat MP does not stretch to the point of breaking. Finally, for the opposition, a Liberal majority would give them the gift of time. The NDP is in debt and its new leader does not have a seat. The Conservatives need to stabilize after this spate of floor crossings, so a majority likely means no election until 2029, plenty of time for those opposition parties to put their houses in order. Donna?
Okay, David Akin in Ottawa, thanks. Quebec's incoming premier held her first public appearance since being elected leader of the governing CAQ party yesterday. Christine Frechette was at a local bakery in her hometown of Trois-Rivières before a press conference in Quebec City. The former Quebec economy minister succeeds François Legault, who resigned as premier after a collapse in his popularity. Frechette says she will bring her own style and personality to the job.
I'm from another generation, Generation X. I'm a woman. We haven't had so many women, only before. We had Pauline Marois, and this comes with a certain number of change for Quebecers, but for them to decide.
Frechette is expected to be sworn in as premier on Wednesday. The U.S. Navy has begun a blockade of the blockade on the Strait of Hormuz. Iran first began limiting access to that shipping lane after the U.S. and Israel attacked Iran. Now, President Trump says ships approaching the U.S. blockade of Iran's ports will be eliminated. NATO allies have said they don't intend to get involved in Trump's blockade. Today, Canada's Prime Minister said he spoke to Pakistan's leader about the evolving situation. They discussed the importance of a sustained ceasefire and de-escalating tensions. Trump claimed today Iran called and wants to make a deal, though as Jackson Proskow reports, it's unclear if a diplomatic solution is on the horizon.
The Strait of Hormuz is now a pressure point for both the world and Iran, as the U.S. enacts a naval blockade of Iranian ports, hoping to squeeze Tehran into making a peace deal.
So now Iran is doing absolutely no business, and we're going to keep it that way very easily.
U.S. President Donald Trump has threatened to destroy any ships that approach the blockade. So far, Iran's threshold for pain seems much higher than Trump's. Iran's Revolutionary Guard said it would continue to control the strait and deny passage to vessels linked to what it called enemy forces.
They're really blackmailing the world. We're not going to let that happen.
Yet Trump seems confident he can make a deal before a 2-week ceasefire ends to stop the fighting, fully reopen the strait, and give the U.S. control of Iran's enriched uranium.
I can tell you that we've been called by the other side. They'd like to make a deal very badly. Very badly.
I think we should interpret all of these moves as negotiating tactics within a negotiation, rather than necessarily a complete breakdown.
Weekend talks in Pakistan ended without an agreement. Trump's blockade now complicates matters for European leaders who vowed to help reopen the Strait of Hormuz.
And we, the UK, will not be joining the blockade that the President announced.
As peace hangs in the balance, there's concern the war could resume at any moment. All the while, the world remains on the brink of an energy crisis.
The ongoing closure of the Strait of Hormuz is greatly damaging, and the restoration of the freedom of navigation is of paramount importance for us.
So far, the U.S. naval blockade has done nothing to ease shipping through the strait, with the U.S. and Iran still trading threats. There has been a trickle of trade, but Donna, shipping companies say they're no closer to a full resumption of traffic.
All right, Jackson Proskow, thank you. They are still celebrating in Hungary after voters resoundingly chose a new prime minister, a stunning loss for Viktor Orban, who has been in power for 16 years. Peter Magyar vows to end corruption and reverse many of his predecessors' policies. Orban was a right-wing populist closely aligned with Russia and an ally of U.S. President Donald Trump. But even after Trump's endorsement and a campaign visit from Vice President J.D. Vance, Orban lost. Redmond Shannon reports on what Hungary's new prime minister is promising to do differently and what won't change.
A new dawn on the banks of the Danube. The writing had been on the wall for weeks for longtime leader Viktor Orban, but few expected such a large win for his former ally, Peter Magyar.
I'm not sure if the new guy is going to be much better, but different for sure.
Magyarország helye Európában.
Magyar says Hungary will now look west toward Europe and not east to Moscow. His Tiza party supporters chanted "Russians go home" after Sunday's election victory. Just days before, leaked audio of calls between the foreign ministers of Russia and NATO and EU member Hungary showed just how closely Orban's government worked with Moscow.
I don't think they were leading at any point this year, but I think it contributed to the landslide victory that Tisza has won.
Magyar says he will remove Hungary's veto on an EU loan to Ukraine, although he opposes Kyiv's fast-track membership. And he will use his supermajority to restore democratic freedoms of the judiciary and media, restricted under Orban.
This is something that he plans to deliver, and also to deliver consequences on the corruption that a lot of his voters perceive to have happened over the last 16 years. That is going to be a very difficult task.
Those efforts should help Hungary restore its EU member funds too. But Magyar, like Orban, is a conservative with similar anti-immigration policies. He suggests a ban on pride parades will be reversed, but without explicitly mentioning the event. Magyar won because he managed to unite a disparate group of opposition voices. His biggest challenge could be keeping all of them aligned in one government. Redmond Shannon, Global News, London.
Cancer in Canada. Coming up, what new numbers reveal about whether screening is doing enough. Plus, why one American state is investigating Lululemon. There's a new snapshot of how cancer is affecting Canadians. It remains the leading cause of death in Canada, and though overall cancer rates are declining, nearly half of people in this country are expected to be diagnosed with cancer in their lifetime. Catherine Ward reports on the statistics and what they tell us.
So clearly we're not at a level where we can say that cancer is of the past. It is not. It remains a big concern from a public health point of view.
That concern is reflected in newly released data, as research now projects 42% of Canadians will receive a diagnosis in their lifetime. Estimates suggest that there will be more than 254,000 new cancer cases in 2026, along with 87,900 cancer deaths. Jay Abramovich was shocked to learn he was part of these sobering numbers.
At 36, being kind of in the prime of my life and not really being in a position at that point where, you know, life is secure, you're financially set, you're good to go. It kind of uproots every aspect of life at that age.
Medical oncologist Dr. Denis Soulière says while projected numbers are high, the report also underscores some meaningful progress.
We know that the reduction in tobacco use has been linked over the last few years to a reduction in the incidence of cancer, of lung cancer, of throat cancer, and bladder cancer specifically, which are linked to the use of tobacco. We are also seeing that for those who do have a diagnosis of cancer, the screening programs that we have are doing their job.
Strengthening screening measures could directly help younger cancer patients. New data out of Alberta shows 1 in 6 people who were diagnosed with cancer between the ages of 15 to 39 are likely to experience another form of cancer in their lifetime. Breast, colorectal, and lung cancers are the most common.
We found that these risks actually change depending on the cancer type that they had as a young individual, which means that we really think that these cancers are linked to the treatments they had, as well as sometimes genetic predispositions.
Researchers say the next step will be to look deeper at the treatments people receive to understand who might be at higher risk and could be prioritized for earlier screening. Donna?
All right, Catherine Ward in Toronto, thanks. In Manitoba, Peguis First Nation is working hard to hold back floodwaters that could devastate the community. Volunteers are working 12-hour shifts, barricading at-risk homes with tens of thousands of sandbags sent by the provincial government. Over the weekend, Manitoba warned of increased flood risk in Peguis. There's been a lot of snow, a delayed melt, and the prospect of rapid spring runoff. Peguis has long been plagued by flooding. A flood in 2022 forced 1,000 people to leave their homes, and most have not been able to return. The Pope stands his ground ahead, how he's responding to insults from the U.S. president and what Christians make of this image Trump posted. There are times it seems the U.S. president has reached a new low, and then he posts something else. Late Sunday night, it was an image of himself, an image created by artificial intelligence that appears to show him as a Christ-like figure healing a sick man in a hospital bed. There was such a backlash, Trump later deleted it. But he didn't apologize. Instead, he claimed he wasn't impersonating Jesus. He says he thinks he looked more like a doctor. In another post, Trump lashed out at the Pope. Heidi Petracek reports on how all of this is being received.
God desires peace for every nation.
Pope Leo XIV continued preaching peace on his trip to the African continent, while in Washington, the U.S. president backpedaled less than 24 hours after posting this Jesus-like image of himself on Orthodox Easter.
I did post it, and I thought it was me as a doctor, and had to do with Red Cross.
Former Republican Congresswoman Marjorie Taylor Greene, who has herself compared the American president to Jesus in the past, called it akin to, quote, the Antichrist Monday. The Knights Templar International, which supported both of Trump's presidential campaigns, also demanded an apology. And outside this New York cathedral,
it's terrible, it's gross, it's blasphemous.
Christians in America have got to realize that if they're following Jesus Christ, they've got to call into question many of the actions of President Donald Trump.
A recent Pew Research Center poll found support has slipped even among the president's biggest religious supporters, white evangelicals, particularly on the question of ethics.
40% of white evangelicals said they're extremely or very confident in Trump's ethics. So that's a minority share.
Per la violenza della guerra.
Tensions escalated after Pope Leo called out Trump's threat to destroy Iranian civilization, and Trump retaliated in a lengthy online attack, calling the Catholic leader weak on crime and terrible for foreign policy. Both are now digging in.
We believe strongly in law and order, and he seemed to have a problem with that, so there's nothing to apologize for. He's wrong.
I have no fear of neither the Trump administration nor speaking out loudly about the message of the gospel.
I stand with the Pope.
The actions of the U.S. president versus the words of the U.S.-born pontiff, testing the faith and allegiance of the American public. Heidi Petracek, Global News, Halifax.
Canadian retailer Lululemon's American arm is being investigated in Texas over allegations its activewear contains so-called forever chemicals. The Attorney General in Texas is looking into whether Lululemon misled customers about the safety, quality, and health impacts of their products. The investigation will examine if their clothing contains forever chemicals that have been linked to cancer, infertility, and other health issues. Lululemon says they're cooperating with the investigation and says they phased out use of those chemicals in early 2024. Acquisition opposition next. Why big Hollywood names, including some Canadians, are condemning Paramount's blockbuster merger with Warner Brothers. Filmmaking is a serious and lucrative business that not only entertains, it's an industry that employs countless people. That's why Hollywood heavyweights are speaking out against Paramount's planned acquisition of Warner Brothers Discovery. More than 1,000 filmmakers and performers released an open letter today warning the multi-billion-dollar deal is bad news for both creatives and audiences. Heather Yourex-West explains why.
Emma Thompson, Ben Stiller, J.J. Abrams, alongside Canadian Hollywood heavyweights like director Denis Villeneuve and actor Elliot Page, coming together in a bid to stop a massive media takeover expected to change Hollywood forever.
This is a deal that is, I think, bad for everyone, including consumers. It is a deal that is at its heart anti-competitive in terms of media mergers.
The proposed Paramount-Warner Brothers merger would bring together two of Hollywood's largest studios, uniting streaming platforms Paramount Plus and HBO Max. More than 1,000 writers, directors, and actors have put their names to an open letter opposing the deal. The transaction would further consolidate an already concentrated media landscape, it says. The result will be fewer opportunities for creators and less choice for audiences in the United States and around the world.
This is a letter really from the lifeblood of the film industry about a significant merger that affects their livelihoods.
I think it's a timely letter given that the California Attorney General Bonda has indicated they are going to seriously review and likely challenge the Paramount-Warner Brothers Discovery deal.
There is pushback to the deal outside the United States, too. In a separate announcement Monday, Britain's antitrust watchdog announced it would be launching an investigation into the acquisition in the coming weeks.
The European Commission is also investigating it because some global properties are implicated in the merger.
CNN and CNN International, which broadcasts to over 200 countries, would be impacted by the deal too, coming under the control of Paramount, the same company that now controls CBS. If approved by both government regulators and shareholders, the $110 billion deal is expected to close later this year. Heather Yourex-West, Global News, Calgary.
And that is Global National for this Monday. I'm Donna Friesen. Tonight's Your Canada is Grand Manan Island, New Brunswick. We'd love to see Your Canada. Please email it to globalnational@globalnews.ca. And thanks for watching. Hope to see you here again tomorrow. Bye-bye.